Hey everybody, welcome to our perfectly imperfect home. Sorry for if we had a little bit of a delayed start. I don't know if you could notice it or not, but we're just going to make the encoder go. We've been talking about parenting in the pandemic. Let me just remind you how this works if you're just catching us tonight. So it is live. We can interact with you, but we're 2 minutes in the future because we're time travelers. And so we will see what you write 2 minutes later, and then that, because we're in the future. It's like there was this great Christopher Nolan movie that I went to see the day before all the theaters shut down, and it was called Tenet.
Oh, was that about time travel?
I don't want to spoil it for you.
Oh, I think you just said it.
Or America. I don't want to spoil it for America.
Okay.
I'm not that guy. But it was actually like legit. It was a great movie. It was a good outing. We were the only people in the theater, my friend Jeremiah and I. So we'll give everybody a minute to get going. What we've been talking about here is kind of this big transition where we've had to, during this pandemic, shift from just, being parents to also being teachers. And I don't know how online schooling is going in your house, but in our house, it's been interesting, right?
Yeah.
It's been tough. And, Jamie and I had a conversation with a dear friend of ours, someone we really trust. He's kind of a hero in this neighborhood. He is in the medical community, and he was talking about, it's taking a toll. This pandemic is taking a toll on the mental health of kids.
Yep.
And that's concerning to me.
Well, and at the hospital, too, there's, we don't have a large pediatric unit, but there's 60% increase in pediatric patients being admitted for attempted suicides. And that's really concerning too. And that's just since the fall. And oftentimes it does, go up, it kind of ebbs and flows, but not like this.
Yeah, it's interesting because at this point right now, it's like they are seeing friends sometimes, not like they did. They aren't seeing all their friends. It is, if I could point to one factor that seems to be the most influential in this, like the mental health toll, it's the isolation. And I think everybody like us has done a really good job of trying to be creative, like trying to come up with, hey, how do we do relationships in an online space? How do we engage digitally? How do we, what does it look like for, we've had date nights together with friends where we have played games online.
Right. That's been fun.
It actually has been pretty fun.
No, there's good alternatives, but it's not the same, and it's not really a replacement for human interaction. You were talking yesterday about an online, virtual church that you experienced through a...
Oh yeah, I was in a conference and they had a virtual reality church, and it was great because it's me. And then our other staff members that were in the conference are all people with grown children or grandmas. And they were all mind blown.
Yeah.
I mean, they were all this, I can't even believe this is real.
It's like playing a video game, but it's church, virtual reality with goggles and everything else. I don't think I want to go quite to that extreme. I feel like that's so disconnected from humans and real people that you can touch and interact with. And, we're not meant to do life alone, but I think there's a way to be creative about the opportunities we do have, and then also, pod your social circle together so that you have, limited exposure. But at the same time, what, the person you were talking about shared is, this is really, at what point does the physical safety compromising the mental health? There's got to be a balance with those two things,
And, it's one of those things that, unfortunately, too, it's so politicized somehow that, now it's
you don't know what to believe.
People don't know.
Yeah.
They really don't know what to do about this, and they don't know how to feel about it. I'm going to share the stream over on my timeline when we get people to jump on with us.
Okay.
But this content is evergreen. Even if you're not with us live, you can be with us after the fact. We'll go back and address comments and interact with that stuff too.
A lot of people are doing family time right now too, putting kids to bed.
Well, we took a 2-week break too.
That's true. We did.
So it's always good to take breaks and do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Hey, so what we have going on tonight, this is what I want to talk about. So I told the internet, babe, that I was going to settle this debate. with you tonight.
Oh, what's the debate?
So here's the
And
debate.
why does the internet need to know?
Because it's way more fun to have this debate in front of the internet.
All right,
Okay.
I'm ready.
So I have taken the approach as a parent where I have exposed our children to. I'm going to give you my version, and then she can give you her version. But I've exposed our children to good stories because I'm a huge fan of literature. I'm a huge fan of reading, and I believe it's C.S. Lewis that said that the best defense against the wrong stories is to fill your head and heart with the right stories. And so, since the kids were little, I've kind of been like, hey, I am the curator of narrative in our family, and
Yeah.
I'm a storyteller, and I'm exposing them to stories, and I take them to movies, and I do all this stuff too. And we've gotten into more than a couple disagreements, and they're not big. It's not like we fight about it really.
No, right.
But you have a different approach, I think. And the debate goes like this. I'm like, oh, that's a great movie for them. And you're like, honey, they're 5.
Right.
And I'm like, that's a really good movie for them right now. And screen time, what are you afraid of? With our children growing up in the digital landscape, talk to me about that.
Yeah.
What is the average mom feeling about it?
So if your kids are on screens, if my kids are on screens for too long, I feel like a bad mom. I feel like I'm using it as a babysitter or an excuse, or it's going to rot their brains. It's going to make their eyes cross. It's going to expose them to stuff that they're not ready to see, or maybe give them access to things that they're not being supervised with. So, and I don't want to watch all the stuff they want to watch. They don't want to watch the stuff I want to watch. So it's hard to find things to watch together. And I listen to podcasts often. I read books sometimes, but mostly podcasts. And I'll get all fired up about the latest statistics about what too much screen time does to your kids.
While you're going there.
And it's scary to hear some of those statistics because, obesity is related to inactivity. You don't have to be active when you're looking at a screen.
Ooh, now we're getting into it now.
You get addicted
Here we
to what you're watching or what you're seeing, and your brain isn't using creativity more. It doesn't have time to be bored. It's got all these different screens, pictures, stories, whatever, coming at a rapid pace to where their brain is used to the novelty all the time, and they don't have the opportunity to allow their imagination to take over. Their hands should be in the dirt sometimes. They should be getting bruises and scratches and, being outside playing with their friends, getting to know real live people, not just watching other people play with other people or other people playing with toys. YouTube, every time the kids watch YouTube, I'm like, turn off YouTube. Let's at least watch a story, like a show that has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah, I'm actually with you there.
I
I feel like YouTube.
The mindless numbing of the brain is so, it makes you feel bad. It makes you wish that you had what those people have. It makes you discontent, and it doesn't lead your heart or your mind or your creativity towards anything except for just consumption that's not engaging, and it's lazy.
Tell us how you really feel.
That is how I really feel.
Okay,
Now,
so
once in a while, it's okay. Like, we'll have days where I'm like, okay, let's just veg this morning. Let's just binge watch a couple of shows or whatever together, and then we talk about it. It's like quality time because we're sharing a story together. But if it's just one of the kids in a room by themselves with a screen in front of their face in the dark, it's like that is isolating, and it doesn't bring people in, and that's where temptation can come in to watch things that they shouldn't be watching.
So I just want to say for the record too, if you're out there right now and you're feeling like judged pretty hard up in here.
This is what my brain does to myself. I'm
Okay.
not meaning anybody else.
Yeah, well,
feel that
slow
way.
down because we probably have as much screen time as the average
for
household.
sure.
I don't think we're not like, hey kids, you just I mean, our kids do read. And we are encouraging them to read all the time, but I'm like bribing them. I'm like giving them incentives to do that.
No, this is constantly a struggle for me. So when I talk about this, it's not like I have the answer to any of it. It's just those are the things that I struggle with as a mom, watching my kids trying to figure out what the balance is for screens.
And it isn't just screens where we are passive consumers that our kids are going to have to learn how to operate with, right? I mean. Jamie and I grew up, we were born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s. 1981. When were you born again?
1980.
Just kidding. I know that. She's older than me because I'm the younger, handsomer one.
Just a month, or no, a year, a month, and 3 days.
I was gonna say there's more than a year
Yep.
there.
But
difference.
I look younger.
Because you're in your 40s and I'm in my 30s.
Yeah,
still.
yeah. Just for a little
I'm in my
longer.
30s and you're in your 40s.
It's all right.
That's okay though, because you're looking good at 40 for an older gal. But I'm just kidding.
Oh,
So,
good.
what was I talking about?
A year?
Oh, this idea, like
figured it out.
we grew up around television as the primary medium of consumption.
Yes. And our parents were afraid of that too.
We had a video game.
We did.
We had
NES.
I had the Nintendo Entertainment System growing up.
Yep.
We eventually got we felt like we were big time when we got our first Super Nintendo.
I never got the Super Nintendo,
Oh
so
my
you were
gosh,
cooler
we thought
than
we
I
were
was.
like hardcore.
Yeah.
We were like 16-bit graphics. This is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're really there. But the landscape now of media interaction and connectivity is completely different. And it has evolved so far beyond passive consumption.
Yeah.
And it's taken us into a place, it actually uses, researchers tell us it uses different centers of the brain.
Yeah, you've done a lot of study about this too.
When they're interacting, it is a different part of the brain than when you're just passively sitting there, your eyes are glazed over. So let's just, because this is going to be a hard conversation, I think, to figure out. Okay, so where do we go from here? How do we put boundaries up that are reasonable?
Yeah.
What do we do in terms of helping our family navigate these waters? Because here's the hard truth. It's not going anywhere. Our world is going to be increasingly digital.
Right.
Our kids are going to be more connected exponentially in the future than they even are today. And that's even hard for me to imagine. It's hard for me to imagine how can they get any more connected.
Right. I was counting the number of screens we have in our house because Dietrich wants his own Chromebook, not his school Chromebook. He wants his own Chromebook to play with. So he's trying to figure out how much money it costs. And, it's got to be cheaper than such and such and this and that. And it's just funny to listen to him talk. But we probably have, just in this room, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
I have
9,
three.
10.
I'm using 3 screens right now
Right.
at the same time.
And he's got access to probably 5 or 6 different screens if he wants them. And he's not satisfied. Like, we have this big screen. It's unbelievable. At our house, we had 1 or 2 TVs. We had a computer later in the 80s. And then, cell phones weren't a thing. So I was just counting the number of screens he has access to as a 7-year-old. And
Right.
that's just normal,
Well, and so just think about this for a second. The last handful of weddings I've done, the last handful of weddings, the couples have met either through dating apps
Or video games.
or video games
Yeah.
or some kind of other online community first.
Yeah.
And this is the norm now. So I think this is hard for us. I think that we're considered the youngest Gen Xers. I think I'm actually the generational cutoff on whether or not you're Gen X or a millennial. Sometimes I feel like a millennial. Sometimes I feel like an Xer. It's hard for me to tell where I'm at. But as Xers, it's hard for us to understand just how true digital natives are experiencing the world. And I've had this conversation so many hundreds of times, I feel like, with parents especially, about their teenager. I don't understand. Why does it just get outside with these stupid video games? I had Mario, but it didn't rot my brain like this. And they don't have any idea, I don't think, just how significant online communities are for the sake of their relational fabric. Their friendships are happening in a digital space, and they're real. And
You saw a lot of that when you were a youth pastor. That's how you connected to some
ton of
kids
it.
that you never would have connected to otherwise.
I
Right?
mean, when I was a youth pastor, all of a sudden, I had these students invite me into Discord channels and playing these certain games with them. And it was I could never, the old adage used to be women want to talk face to face and guys want to talk shoulder to shoulder. And now it's very often screen to screen, or not even, I can't even
Through
see the
the
face.
screen.
It's we're playing games and I hear them over the headset or whatever, and then they want to have these serious conversations about life and love and Jesus.
No, I remember the first time I got you know, it wasn't a phone call anymore, it was a text about, you know, a teenage girl who was pregnant. And I was like, can't you just pick up the phone? And then I realized, oh, we're in a totally different age now. And that was, I mean,
Right.
that was 15 years ago.
Yeah,
but
and text messaging is actually the easier way
yeah.
for young people to communicate
communicate,
hard
right.
things.
Right.
They feel like they can compose their thoughts. They feel like they have more control over the conversation. They feel like face-to-face conversation. This is what the studies are saying. They're using words like chaotic and uncontrollable. It's too free flowing. Now think about this. Think about what this will do for their professional lives, their relationships going forward.
Yeah.
I do a lot of marriage counseling, and right now I have one couple in particular. I have several couples that this is true for historically, but one right now, she can't in the moment tell him how she feels. She has to write it out. And you know what? He's good. He's with her. He listens to her. He wants to go back. But in the moment, she feels like, oh, I can't compose my thoughts good enough to have like a good discussion.
Sure.
So she wants to so she's always texting him. So they get in a fight and she leaves the room and then texts him from the other room. And he's just like, get over here and talk to me. He's yelling at her. And it's hard, you know?
Right.
Does
that work? Is that okay?
How I feel about this, and I think differently than you. I don't think we can win. I don't think there is a winning I don't think we're going to hold back the tide.
No,
of this.
you don't want to declare war. You got to figure out how to live with the new, like what's happening. Like it's not going anywhere, like you said. And
but I feel like you would want it to go somewhere. I feel like you would actually be like, you know what? If we could just disconnect the internet.
No, I don't feel that way. I think what's hard about it, honestly, is I have to be disciplined as a mother to be able to set boundaries and say no consistently because they don't have the prefrontal cortex or the ability to set boundaries for themselves. And that is exhausting. Like they ask me, oh, it's a no screens day. Okay. Or, you know, we're not doing screens for the next couple hours. But mom, can I write my book on the computer? Right. And okay, it's writing. So is that okay? I don't know.
Right. And
go ask your dad. That's what I always say.
This is literally what we're doing all day is we're making these
Go ask your dad.
judgments.
And then I say yes or you say no, and then they don't know what to do. It's exhausting, it's confusing, and it's trying to manage all of that on top of everything else that we have going on. So would it be easier to just turn off all the internet? Yeah, sure. But that's not realistic, and I get that. And it's not necessarily that that's needed. It's trying to teach them, okay, well, what is the reason for this rule that we're creating, and does that apply to this situation? The reason is you need to rest your eyes. You're on screens all day for school right now. You need to get your body moving. I like that you're being creative with your writing on the computer, but can you do that in another way? Can you know what I mean? So, but that takes energy that I am like, zero. I have zero energy at the end of the day right now. And to answer those questions is hard. So it's really, that's about, you know, my capacity for helping to train them. And that's what I struggle with. I feel like you do a really good job of doing that next to them, alongside them, and you consume what they're consuming with them. You're often on the games with them or watching a show with them or whatever. Whereas I just don't, if I sit down, I fall asleep. So
right.
It's hard for me.
And that's one of the things I want to talk about tonight is the idea that like they need us as parents to be guides in the digital world.
Yeah.
And even though we might not be digital natives, we still have the responsibility to train them and raise them and prepare them to navigate the increasing complexity of a digital world.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to have to do things that, I mean, so let's just walk down the list really quick, okay? There are major safety concerns with just in general, the connectivity of our children.
Yeah.
There are dramatic safety concerns. I mean, when I was a youth pastor, I was always telling young ladies and young men, like, hey, don't give away personal information on your email tag or your, at this point, it was like, they were still like doing chat and, you know, messenger handles and all that kind of thing too. And, you know, there is like reputation concerns.
Right. What you record is out there forever.
Forever.
You know,
your digital footprint lasts forever. And there is something that was happening quite often in my last few years of youth pastoring was this idea of double lives, where students are now curating a public persona online with a public, profile on Instagram and a public Twitter
And they friend
and
their
a public
parents.
whatever. And they have, that's where you're friended. And then they have another private profile. It's their hidden, secret Twitter or, Finsta or fake Insta or all these different things too. And I
Probably
got
something
exposed to like
else
this
now.
underworld of like, oh my God. I'm not prepared for any of this. And it's craziness. Okay, so there are safety concerns. And there are relational concerns. The other day, our son came downstairs and he was just crying his eyes out. He's just so upset. And he said, he broke my heart. He's holding the phone.
He betrayed me.
He betrayed me. He
My
broke my
best
heart.
friend.
My best friend broke my heart. And I'm like, what is wrong, buddy? And so when we look at this, he's chatting with a friend on Messenger Kids, and he wants to play a game with the friend. Totally innocent. But the friend can't play right now. So Dietrich starts spamming him, like, play with me right now. Play with me right now.
This has been going on for days.
I mean, for like 3 days,
Yeah.
he's been like, play with me, play with me, play with me. Why can't you play with me? What's wrong? And then finally the friend was like, I can't play with you right now. Or I don't think it's fair for me to play whenever you want to play.
Stop spamming me.
Stop spamming me. And Dietrich was like, it's over.
He hates me.
We're not friends anymore. And you know the little emoji that's like, I'm laughing so hard I'm crying?
He sent that.
He sent that because in
He doesn't
Dietrich's
know.
world, that literally means I'm bawling
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
And emojis to us are a cartoon accessory to the communication we're trying to lay down. To Dietrich, this is how I represent my emotion.
Yeah.
I send an emoji. Okay, we're in a new world now, man. We're in a totally new zip code.
And that was all happening for, I don't even know if it was weeks, if it was days. It was happening for a long enough time that it impacted him like to that level. And we didn't know it was going on.
Right.
We gave him Messenger Kids as a way to contact his friends that he
During
can't
the
see
pandemic.
during the pandemic and when he was isolated for his illness. So, we're trying to give him this social connection. Meanwhile, we're not navigating it with him or for him.
Right.
So it ended up, we talked him through it. And we're like, listen, you have to have good manners when you're online. You can't spam your friends. Like, that's not fair. He probably just can't play right now. So we had him text an apology and that, I'm sorry, I'm learning better manners. Can we still be friends? And the kid was like, yeah, my mom
course.
just said I can't play with screens right now.
Right.
And
No-
Dietrich was like, can we just pretend this never happened?
He's 7 years old.
I know. It's crazy. So that was an eye-opener for me as a mom because I didn't know that was going on for my 7-year-old. And that's hard. Like, if he had a friend over, I would be listening to their conversation,
Right.
watching what's happening,
Right.
helping facilitate the play, have them take breaks to eat, like that sort of thing. But when they're just in a room on a screen, I don't know what's happening.
And I think this is one of the big takeaways here too, is that like, this is what can't happen. What can't happen is they just go on, especially when they're younger, right? And have their private lives. So think about this in terms of if in a physical space, they aren't ready for that level of autonomy yet. So if your kid is in, preschool or kindergarten or even, let's say through 4th grade even, they don't do a lot of playing independent of spaces you can supervise, or they shouldn't be yet. And so when we let them loose, I can't tell you how many times I've been like, like I'm not a huge gamer, but like when I do play online, it's like, oh my gosh, the mouth. I'm like, what is happening right now? And I realize like some 5th grader in New Mexico is like dressing me down so hard right now that I'm like, listen, old man. And I'm like, what? You kissed your mother with that mouth?
No
What's
way.
happening right now? And, we have a lot of coaching to do relationally. And we have to understand words have power. Words expressed digitally have the potential for exponential power.
So now I'm feeling nervous and I'm feeling pressure because, like, okay, if my kids are going to be on screens, all 3 of them, how do I manage that? How do I monitor that? How do I help them? Because it's not reasonable for me to be on screens all the time when they're on screens. Unless we live in a van down by the river. We both quit our jobs.
Well, so maybe not every moment, right? But can you do pretty frequent check-ins?
No, I can't. How do I do that?
We're doing it okay.
I'm not. Maybe see you. I'm glad that you are. That's your job in my mind. Because I don't have time even to check my own email. How do I check and keep up with their schools? How do I check their social interactions?
So I think, yeah, that's
Or
this
the
is a fair
single
question.
mom, or both, we're both working. Lots of families both are working, and then trying to figure out that balance. So, like, in my mind, it's easier just to cut them off than to do
okay.
it with them.
Let's make this designation right now, okay? Because this is good. So there are certain things that we're going to have a preventative approach toward, right? We're going to limit their exposure to things that they shouldn't be exposed to too early.
Putting those, like, what are
Boundaries
those? Bark or dog bark? What's that thing
Bark,
called?
yeah, Bark.
Those
So
apps that can help
Bark
you
is a
monitor.
service that helps you monitor what's happening with your kids on the web.
Right.
Those things are important. And we've got filters and VPNs and all kinds of crap too that you put into place to make it so it's a little harder for bad things to find them, right?
Sure.
Preventative is good, but we still have to prepare them for the world, and that world is out there, and it is digital. And the new horizon of relationships is digital. It includes text threads, it includes group chats, it includes
The stuff that we don't even know
all
is out
kinds
there.
of apps that we don't know what
I feel
they
like
are
you
yet.
had a better handle on it when you were a youth pastor.
Oh, way better, because I had to. I was like into this.
Yeah, I kinda
now
want
a
you to-
parent, I'm like the old man dad now. It's like, what you got there, kid?
Right.
He's like, this is the new game Among Us. I have to do lots of research because, so
Right. Gotcha is a big deal. Right
some
now.
of our preventative things, our kids, one, we don't allow screens in their rooms. So they don't, like, at nighttime, there's no, like, laptops and phones up in their rooms. They stay downstairs with us. So that means there's a limit. We also do limits on days. So we tried for a long time, we tried like a ticket system, or we tried like hours. And what we ended up deciding was,
There's too many of them to do it hour by hour.
it's just craziness.
Yeah.
So we ended up deciding odd days are no screen days.
And we just started doing that again. We actually didn't do that through quarantine very much. It's like
Yeah, we
when school happens.
all the good
Yeah.
habits went out the window.
Yeah.
But when school resumed, we're like, okay, we're going
gotta
back
do
to the odd,
something.
even rhythm. So
Right.
on even days, you can play Nintendo, you can play whatever, you can watch TV, that's okay. But on odd days, go find something to do.
And I know some people who only do screens on the weekends or
Right.
certain times of the day. So like it doesn't mean you have to do what we're doing. Obviously, what works for your family that's doable and manageable for you is what you got to do.
Well, and what's been really hard, I'm the one who works from home,
Right.
and it's really difficult when school is over
And you got to get
and
some stuff
I
done.
have more work to do from 3 to 7.
Right.
And I have meetings and stuff going on, and my children are like, but Dad, we want to be entertained. And the temptation is always there to be like, fine,
Just do it. Just get
get
away.
on screens.
Yeah.
Just whatever. And that, I think, is like short-term payoff for long-term problem, right?
Right. But then how else do you get your work done?
It's tough.
Yeah.
What I did today was I locked the door.
Which door?
The office door. I'm just like, Dietrich is like, Dad, but I'm bored. I said, well, that's good for you, buddy. Good luck. You still can't have screens. And eventually he found Legos to play with, and he did great. And then later he told me, you keep telling me being bored is good for me. I just want to let you know, it's not.
I like it. So I come home today and it's a no screens day. Normally I walk in the door and if they're like on the couch zombies, I immediately feel a sense of guilt. Like I should be doing something with them, or I should have provided an activity, or I should have planned something so they wouldn't be in front of screens. Granted, they may not have been on screens the rest of the day. Now they're just chilling out watching a show together or something or whatever. But I find so much more like joy and contentment and lack of guilt when I walk in and they're playing outside, or like today, Dietrich's running around. Honestly, he seems happier when he's not. And maybe that's me just projecting my happiness, but
My cousin Jan said that her first tablet was an Etch-a-Sketch.
oh my gosh.
That's good. That's great, Jan. And I think my kids have an Etch-a-Sketch too.
We do. We have an extra sketch.
But then, okay, so preventative measures, right?
yeah.
There are some things you can do. You can put boundaries up And you know what? You're the parent. You're more in control than you think you are. It seems like you're fighting a losing battle. They're always going to protest. Anytime you put a boundary up, they're always going to be mad about it. Be the parent. You're the adult. Like you said earlier, they don't have a fully formed prefrontal cortex yet. They don't have the ability to make wise choices. That's why parents have to make some wise choices for them in terms of boundaries.
I'm going to share this on my screen while you're talking.
Okay, so that's important. Second thing, that, outside of the preventative approach, I want to talk now about the redemptive approach. And this is where you and I are kind of different, I think.
Yes.
So in terms of preventative, yes, I'm not for exposing our kids to things they shouldn't be exposed to. I'm not for, boundaryness, willy-nilly, whatever. But in terms of, I know I won't be able to succeed at preventing them from everything, from finding everything that's going to hurt them. So I'm trying to take a more redemptive approach where now, okay, I'm going to teach them, not isolate them from the harmful things in the world, but insulate them against the harmful things in the world. So I want to be a guide for them and give them my eyes, my wisdom, my worldview as we consume media together. And so this is part of what is, I've done this since they were little, sometimes far too little. We did like a Harry Potter movie marathon when the kids were pretty little.
I think Paige was 4.
They were really into it at first, and it got darker and darker and darker, and then eventually Paige is like,
And Paige is an empath like me. She
she's
absorbs
dying.
the emotion behind the movies, and then she can't sleep. And I'm like, what the heck did you do? And it reminds me of when I was in 5th grade and I watched Pet Sematary, and it jacked me up for like 5 months. I couldn't sleep in my own room. I'm just so like, I can't watch horror movies or anything like dark. It just messes with my heart. So it does it to her too.
So I admit, maybe Lord of the Rings, they were exposed to Lord of the Rings maybe a few decades too early, or
They're not even that old.
they were exposed to, like the other day I started watching the 1970 or 1980 version of Dune.
Oh yeah,
Because the new one's coming out.
Yeah. Ooh.
And then as I'm watching this with Bella, I'm like,
So
okay,
inappropriate.
we're getting into some stuff here that we need to be careful of. And so I'm the king of this. This is what I do. This is one of the techniques I use. Okay, I pause all the time.
Which I am thankful for, because if you don't do that and you just consume it and then they have all these questions, I think that's why they like watching TV with you, because they explain. I've talked to some of my friends and none of their kids watch TV with them. So I feel like we should hang on to this moment while it exists.
I do it, and this is why, because I can't handle, like you said earlier, there is a major difference between stories and mindless consumption.
Yes.
And a lot of the YouTube things where it's like, I'm going to watch Ryan play with his toys, or I'm going to watch this family have a vacation, or I'm going to watch somebody else do gaming. I can't do that. That drives me crazy. But if I can curate for them good stories, and I can show them real life lessons in the lives of our on-screen characters, and I can hit pause. And so right now with our two oldest, they have a lot of rivalry between them, Paige and Bella. And I loathe that. I had 2 brothers that were close in age, but I don't ever think I felt rivalry with them ever.
I would be interested to ask them. I feel like you have a selective memory.
Really?
I don't know.
I highly doubt it.
Okay.
I bet my brothers are going to say no. Okay. We didn't. I mean, we loved when one another. Our parents built a culture of brotherhood that mattered. I mean, we fought. Sure, we fought like crazy, but I never felt like I was inferior to Brandon or Jordan, or I was in their shadow. You're saying maybe they felt like they were in mine?
I don't know. It'd just be
Anyway,
interesting.
I want to squash it
Okay.
with our daughters.
And it happens with Dietrich too, though.
It does.
So
And so we
ask
started
your
watching
parents.
Downton Abbey with the girls, and my goal, it was on purpose. I knew my kids were gonna like it. They're gonna get drawn to the stories. It's just it's a funny show, BBC thing for a few years ago. But what I didn't remember about the show was how quickly and how consistently it visits very mature topics.
sure.
Very mature. So some of them are going over little Paigie's head. They're going over her head. Bella's not missing a single thing.
Right.
And so where I think some people would say, Justin, you're nuts to do that. Like, why are you exposing them to that right now? It's given me a space to have some conversations with Bella that maybe I should have had already.
Right.
about some hard topics. And it's also given me a space to point out just how silly it is when Mary and Edith are so catty to each other. And they get now to see this. And this is what I'm going to say about this. It's working.
You see it working?
They're being sweeter to each other, babe.
Good.
You don't believe me.
No, and I don't have a problem with that piece. Like, I actually really, I've learned to like enjoy that you do that with them, and that it's a thing that they really do learn things that they haven't experienced before. So, I do believe you. I know that they've been fighting, but you're home with them more than I am, so you know better than I do, I guess.
They do fight, but they also have been like buddies. They've had like girl
That's true.
moments.
No, they
and
have.
Had, like
Oh my gosh,
sleepovers.
it's
and
so
they had,
cute
like,
when they do
like,
that.
That's great. They're
Yeah.
having like sister chats, and I'm like, this is what I want. Another great show, and this, if your kids aren't my kids, Bella is 11 and Paige is 9 right now. Maybe that seems like that's really, really young for Downton Abbey, but like on Netflix right now, the entire Avatar: The Last Airbender
Oh, yeah.
series
That's a good
is
one.
available.
And you enjoy that too.
It might be
right?
the best
Yeah,
television
It's pretty good.
I've seen in like a decade. It's so good. It's a cartoon. It's so well written. It's so well done. Everybody got into it.
And you get attached to the characters. There's action
Yes.
in it so Dietrich can act out all the things because he's not a passive watcher.
No, he wants to play. He
active.
wants to jump around and flip, and there's lots of cool stuff happening. And what is cool though is there's so many stories that you can use as lever points and as conversation starters with your kids to shape their hearts toward virtue. And you get to sort of see, like, if you know the story, you'll know this, but Uncle Iroh is maybe my favorite character on television in the last decade. Uncle Iroh is just so good. He sees the beauty where no one else can see the beauty. He sees the potential and not the problems, and he draws the best out of people all around him. And it's been a conversation that I've been having with Bella about God's love in terms of Uncle Iroh. Anyway, these are thoughts.
It's cool.
But this is what I want to get at, because what I get nervous about is, my 12-year-old's off playing Fortnite for 7 hours without mom or dad there,
Right.
ever.
Right.
I'm not saying you need to play for 7 hours of Fortnite, but I'm saying you better have
what they're
played
doing.
every game they're playing, and you better have at least watch them play.
Okay,
Sit with them, get
that's
alongside
so much.
them.
That's so much, though.
I'm not saying every time they play
No,
it.
but
I'm
you
saying
better
you have
play
an
every game
idea.
they're playing.
It's hard for me to imagine,
Have you played every game that they're playing?
or I've watched them play it.
Okay.
I just sit down with them for 20 minutes and watch him play.
Good for you. I feel like that's just unrealistic for most people.
But it's such good quality time. Like
It is, and they invite you in.
It makes him feel
Yeah.
like $1 million for me to be like, Dietrich, tell me what you're doing in Animal Crossing right now.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, Dad, here's what Mario World Builder. I'm building this thing, and look at this. And there's just they want you in the world. And I know that for some of you have teenagers, you have to push through that stiff arm, I think, to like
They
get, 'cause
stop inviting you in eventually.
they'll stop inviting
Yeah.
you, and they're isolating now. Well, here's another thing I'll say in terms of preventative measures. This isn't redemptive. This is preventative. We have every password.
Yeah.
Our kids don't get to install apps without our approval. We know all of their accounts for anything that they're on, and we're going to keep it that way forever. And we let Bella know, hey, we're reading every text message you have.
And so is her brother and sister on the old
Apparently,
phone
the whole
that they
family
have.
is. Yeah, everybody's logged
It's on
into
the
Bella's
computers.
stuff.
So if you're friends with Bella,
Right. Yeah. Amy Enlow is saying, yes, it is so hard. There's so much guilt
the guilt, right?
about all this.
And that's the thing. Like, you're talking about, if they're going to play a game, you have to know what they're playing. Well, sometimes they figure stuff out before I even know. Like, Messenger Kids didn't happen because I was looking for a way for them to connect. It's because they found it.
Yeah.
Dietrich found it, figured out how to install it, and said, hey, Mom, can you password this for me?
Right.
And I'm like, sure. Boop, boop, boop. Like, I don't know. I don't even know what it does, before I install it. But I'm just like, sure, get away, It's awful.
So this is interesting to me because I'm not that way. I actually so let me just tell you right now that he wanted to install this game called Among Us. So I
Yes.
don't know.
He's been asking
I'm
that
sure
for a
lot of
while.
people So like a week went by, Dad, I really want Among Us. I really want Among Us. I want Among Us.
I
Okay,
watched
fine.
it on YouTube.
So I checked it out for a minute, and I was like, okay, I think I can handle Among Us. So we got him Among Us. He paid me $5. We get in the whole thing. He downloads it on his thing, and now they're playing it. And so today after school, he played a round of Among Us with his tutor, who is a 40-something-year-old woman who also has it on her phone. And
Yeah, that's true. And they do play Minecraft with other people in their lives, like
was pretty
grandma
cool.
and Nana, and yeah.
and
That's
like
cool.
my mom, so my kid's Nana has spent hours on the phone with Bella playing Prodigy math games, or and they'll FaceTime, and then they'll be playing some game together. And then your mom plays Minecraft with them.
She said mostly she just breaks walls. She doesn't really play.
She doesn't know what she's doing.
So and all of that sounds really good and nice and idealistic. I am trying to picture a time that I have during the week to make this stuff happen, and I need to figure out how to make that happen, because that's the last thing I want to do is sit on a screen when I get home. I sit in front of a screen at a computer all day, or I'm tired, or I want to go do something for myself. How do I balance that? Because I really count on you to do that. And if you didn't do it, my kids would be in trouble.
But
Our kids.
this isn't something we have to do daily. It isn't something we have to do weekly. It's something we have to do regularly. We have to know.
I need a system and a to-do list.
We have to know what kind of media our kids are consuming, and how we can coach them while they consume it and interact with it. We have to be present enough with them to be able to coach them through this tough stuff, because it's going to be hard. There are relational realities that they're going to have to deal with for the rest of their little lives about how they'll interact online with other people.
Okay, so you talked about preventative. That's preventative.
And we've been mixing that, and then the
Maintenance.
redemptive is the other side of it,
redemptive, okay.
where I'm trying to use this to how can we use this to form their character, to prompt critical conversations. How can we use this to
Connect with them.
Like there's some good here that we
Sure.
can actually develop,
Yeah.
and we can actually do. We can actually enjoy alongside each other. So this is the system. I learned this, I don't know when. The guy's name is Walt Mueller. He's like a youth culture specialist. He's been around for years and years. At this point, I don't know if he still is a youth culture specialist. It's hard to be current for 40 years. But anyway, his whole system that he modeled for us years ago, and I've been using it for a long time, is discover, discern, decide. Discover, discern, decide. So you look together with your kids at whatever it is we're going to check out. The song, this game, this show, this YouTuber. Then we discern. That is the values-based conversation about what this represents. What is the worldview of this song? And I'm making my kids tell me that.
Yeah.
Like, talk this through. What do those lyrics mean? And we had a long conversation. You know the song, I got new rules, I count them. I was like, what are the words to that song? And then the whole family went around trying to figure out what it was. And they settled with that the words were, I've got a moose in my bottom. And I was like, that is not what it says.
That gift comes from me.
I was like, those aren't the words. But we Googled it. Anyway.
Right.
But, so you sit down with the lyrics of the song, you discern together what this is about. And then that's when you can bring God's word into it. You can bring scripture into it.
So
that our families, is it congruent with our values?
I do have an example of this that I am working on right now with Bella, and I'm not even sure what to do. So can I give you an example? So Gotcha Verse is a thing that she does, and it's like a way to create stories, and what's that?
It's like a little animated
stories. And I was doing some research on it because she spends a lot of time creating these like movies, stories. And so I was reading the reviews on it one day, and there was some stuff, on there saying that things that were inappropriate and there weren't good guidelines and filters, and the update wasn't being monitored carefully, and it's probably not safe compared to like Roblox or some of the other ones.
Right.
And so like I wake up in the morning, and Bella's up before I am now, and she's sitting on the couch doing Gotcha Verse by herself at 5:36 in the morning until school starts, and I'm just like, this just it makes me cringe. Like I don't feel safe with it. I don't feel comfortable with it. I don't know enough about it. And there's a lot of like dark music that she's putting in with it. Is this too much information?
I mean,
So,
no.
and it bothers me. Like there's something not settling well with me when I see that happening. So I sat down with her this morning because I was up early for work too, and I just, was talking through it with her. I actually watched the stories that she's creating and stuff like that. And then I talked to her about it, and, in her mind, she's defending why it's okay for her to do it. And I don't even want to use the word defending. She's explaining it to me, and then I'll ask a question like, well, this is one thing I read about it. And then she'll come back to me with, oh, actually, yes, it used to be such and such way, but now they've changed that feature, so you can't do that anymore or something. But, like if it's something that's so important to her that it's part of her social life, she does it with friends, and it's a huge part of what she does on a weekly or daily basis, just because I don't feel okay about it, like,
Right.
I don't know what to do next. You know what I mean?
This is what I would say. There have been moments where the attitude of a parent is like, that's stupid because I don't like it.
Right.
Or like, because I'm not into that, you shouldn't be into that either. Like I had a lot of dads over the years try and tell me like, games are dumb, sports are good. Like games do bad things to kids, sports do good things for kids. And I just want to say that's completely 100% like a bias you've developed over time. And it's invalidating to something that your kids are really into and that does have some value. I know at least one like major company who their hiring profile includes like high level gamers.
Right.
Because
Problem
what
solving.
other environment can you have where there's massive coordination of a diverse array of people with diverse skill sets working together to accomplish a common goal in an ever-changing, evolving environment? Think about that for a second.
I'm thinking.
This is pretty big. It's like the military or gaming. Okay? So, anyway, if your attitude was, I'm just into that so it's stupid, I would say, no, enter that with her. But what I actually hear you saying is
Yuck.
something about this isn't
It
right.
feels gross.
So then there's a boundary we got to put up there.
But I can't figure out what the boundary needs to be, or like what is it that bothers me about it,
In
Yeah.
our family, I'm going to get in here with you, and we're going to figure that out.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but that's what I would say is if you were someone who wasn't my bride, I would say trust your mom sense.
That's true.
Like-
That's Jud. I just made up a word, Jud.
That's
It's
Jude.
good.
That's very Jude.
It's good.
Very, very Jude.
Anyways, that's why when I get upset about technology or I get all shitty on myself or guilty is because I don't know and I don't understand it and it feels unsafe to me. And I don't want my kids to be entering something that I have no idea what's happening, but I don't have the time or I don't make the time to enter that world with them,
But
know?
you're making it sound like this is something other than parenting.
Oh, that's true. It's just exhausting. It's because we're parents. That's why this is hard.
That's all this is parenting.
Shoot,
It's
why
not
did-
like there's like another thing you're doing. It's
Shoot.
not like, oh, well, I have to add, in addition to parenting, I have
have
to
to
add
parent.
onto my plate parenting.
This part of parenting is hard for me.
Well, it's
It's
not.
all hard, though.
You're doing it very well, and you're doing it more than you know you're doing it. Like, let's talk about one more arena of this. So online manners. There are manners online. I want to encourage those of you who are active on social media platforms. One of the best things you could do for your children is to use online manners yourself. No one wants to hear your political rants. You're not changing anybody's opinions. You sound like a jerk. And it's going to embarrass your kids someday. And I on that note too, like we have to understand when you're communicating face to face, as much communication is nonverbal
Right.
as is verbal. Your posture, your body language, the tone of your voice, your face, all of these things are used to communicate very important social cues. None of that happens through text message. And so it is really, really difficult to have weighty conversations over text message. It's really difficult to have significant ones, and it's very easy to be misunderstood through email.
Oh, yeah.
And, or through kids aren't emailing. I shouldn't even say email, but we have to teach our kids digital manners, and it might mean we have to learn some digital manners
I
ourselves.
wonder if that's part of cotillion now, where they go through like manners school. Maybe they can teach them how to text with good manners too.
It's funny you say that because like I have one friend who has very good manners. He's like maybe he has the best manners of anybody I know. If you have him over, I used to always get a handwritten card like the next week. Thanks for having me over. It was delightful. I now get texts, but they're very intentional texts.
Yeah, they're nice.
He says, "Thanks for having me over. You guys are the best." And I'm like, "Aw."
He's saving a tree while he's at it. Cool.
Yes, digital manners matter. Teaching our kids how to communicate warmth, how to use your words in a beautiful way, and that words matter. James, the brother of Jesus, taught that like the tongue is incredibly powerful. One spark will light an entire fire. You put a small bit in the mouth of a horse, and it steers a great big powerful animal. And thus is the same with your words. Your words matter. Every word you speak, which includes every byte that you put into the cyberspace.
Yeah, and we've had encounters with that already. And, kids in chats at school saying things that they've heard from, wherever they've heard it from, not knowing even what words they're saying. Or, like different, not emojis, what's the GIFs and maybe not emojis.
Memes.
That's the word I'm looking for.
Right.
I sound really old now. But
no, but we
we've
have
had
to
that
call
happen.
some hipper friends. Yeah.
We've had that happen already where one of the kids, I got a text from one of my kids saying, "What does blank mean?" And I was like, I guess I need to look that up, and then we reach out to our friends who are younger who know what it means. And then they shared with me. And then I was like, hopefully that kid didn't really know what he was saying to you, because that's so inappropriate. And it was on a school computer, so it's getting caught, and it was a good lesson for us to be like, remember, like what you put out there means something.
Yeah.
Like you can't just say things flippantly. You can't be sarcastic, because everything you say is being recorded and it can be misunderstood and it can be hurtful.
One of the things we're trying to teach our kids is you are responsible for every word you say, whether it's online or in person. You're responsible for every word you say.
Yeah.
And I do think that, you can call it digital courage or keyboard courage, or, people will act sometimes more rudely online than they will in person.
Right, because you
more
can
cruelly,
hide.
but it wounds just the same.
Yeah.
And we got to help our kids navigate that too. That's tough.
Just thinking about, one of the kids that we pastored through youth group, his mom and him would sit down after school every day and they would read through his texts or posts or whatever. And I always imagined myself being able to do something like that with my kids. And I haven't done. I mean, our kids don't have social media yet. I mean, when I say social media, I mean like Facebook,
Right.
but really it is what all the other chats and things that they're doing. That is their form of social media. It's through gaming. It's through creative elements. It's through apps. And I'm not doing that.
But I'm with you on this one, because I've tried to like keep up with the text threads. Do you want to know what I don't have
my
all
God.
the patience in the
They're
world
so long and so trolly.
4,000 pages of trolly 11-year-old girl text messages.
Right?
I'm like, what are they even talking about? I sound like the oldest man right now.
You are. You're almost 40, so.
It's true. It's
You're
true.
in your 30s, but you're almost 40.
I am. I'm going to be 40 in
Your-
2021.
Your clock is ticking.
It seems like a long time away. 2021 will be at least, because I mean, how 2020's lasted what, 11 years? So 2021 could be a long time away. Hey, we will wrap it up. Jan, my cousin Jan says, our trust is in Jesus is the main ingredient to our lives. That's very true. Thank you guys for coming on. Amy, Jan, thank you for piping up here on the chat.
Sarah was
Always
on
nice
for
to
a
hear
little
people.
bit.
Sarah was on for a bit. That's awesome. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us. This is our perfectly imperfect home. We're going to go read some text messages from our kids.
Whew. Pour us a glass of water.
Pour us a glass of club soda
Club
with a
soda.
little
Sit
lime
down and
wedge.
Enjoy those text threads messages.
Go get 'em.
I'm gonna go make a gotcha story, and then I'm gonna play some Among Us, and then I'm gonna play some Roblox, and then some Minecraft tonight. Doesn't that sound fun?
It's gonna be a digital extravaganza over here. That's what's gonna happen.
Maybe that's what we should do for like a small group or something. Be like parents who stalk their kids online. We can all do it together.
It's good.
I don't know.
All right. God bless everybody.
All right.